What's up, photo nerds? Aaron here with my very first recording of what I hope to be many. My goal here is just to kind of record my workflow and just kind of see what you guys think of it. You guys can give me feedback if there's a better way to do something. I learned from it, and if there's something in here you guys learned from it, I'm pumped. So just to kind of dive into it, I guess, let's just open up a file here. This is a raw file from my 5D Mark III, and this is opening up in Camera Raw, as you can see. For me, I don't actually like to do anything in here just yet. Reason being is because if I do adjust anything in here and then I open up the image, these settings are baked into that image. I can't adjust them later. So I normally leave everything default and I click Open Image. And while that loads, I got my history here, layers, adjustments, histogram, properties, and the tool settings are up here, obviously, with the tabs. So basically what I like to do to start things off is start fresh with a new layer. And I'm going to call that RT for retouch. And as you can see, it's a transparent layer. So if I turn this off and on again, nothing changes in the image. And that's because I want to do all my adjustments pixel-wise on this layer. I'd never want to touch the original. That way it's a less intrusive way to edit pixels, and if I ever need to change them, that's still right here. A lot easier to work with. So I'm just going to press J on my keyboard or spot healing brush and just kind of take out these little brushes or branches here. Those are a little distracting, and I'm not a huge fan of this. I'm going to press Command plus on my keyboard and then hold spacebar down to kind of pan my way over. Not a huge fan of this guy, so I'm going to take that out. I think that's like another part of the fence or something. Maybe a little bit of that barbed wire too. And that dandelion. Alright, so that looks better. I'm going to zoom out, press Command 0 to fit the image in my screen. If I were to go a little more into detail, maybe I'd take this guy out and maybe some of that graffiti. But this looks good for now. So what I want to do is basically turn all of this into a smart object so I can bring that camera raw filter back. I do like working with it, so what I'll do is select the background layer, press Command J to duplicate it, and I'll just rename it real quick back to that background title. And what I'm going to do is press and hold Shift to highlight all of these, and then right click, Smart Object, convert to Smart Object. This is where the money makes a lot of the sense here. Basically what I can do is press filter and go down to camera raw. So now with this single layer, Photoshop is reading both of those layers as one. I can now edit everything in here just like I normally would, but I can always come back to it because it's that smart layer. So what I like to do is just maybe kind of bring back some of these highlights a little bit from the sky. That looks good. And maybe bring some of the shadows up so I can still see some of that. And then when I come down to clarity and dehaze, I always choose dehaze over clarity because it kind of handles contrast in a natural way. When you add clarity, it makes things pop, like HDR, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then contrast, as you know, this is just a little kind of a muddy way to get there too. So dehaze is my way to get. Excuse me. Dehaze is my way to go. It used to actually be in this FX tab, but I think people use it so much that they moved it up front, which is pretty cool. And then vibrance right here, I choose that over saturation any day because this actually just picks up colors and boosts them, but it protects a lot of skin tones. So a lot of oranges, yellows, and reds. Those will be the latter images, or the latter. Those will be the latter colors to be adjusted, so it'll pick up the blues and greens to be vibrant over the red and yellow. So hopefully that makes a little sense there as I stumble over my words. So that looks pretty cool. What I'll do is just kind of leave that as is, click OK, and now that saves the image. And again, this is 2 layers, just to illustrate that. If I double click this smart object icon on the little thumbnail, it'll actually make a new tab just like a web browser, and it'll show me the original 2 file, basically the layers that I made into the smart object. So I'm just going to leave these alone. I'm going to press Command W to go out of that one. So if I toggle this, it shows you the original background layer that had the branches and all this stuff down here. And if I bring that up, that stuff is gone, and it has my camera raw filter. So if I ever wanted to go back and change it, I can double tap and boom, all the sliders are still there and adjustable. So that being said, this is looking pretty cool. What I want to do is just finalize it with a little bit more style. So I'm going to add a curves layer, and I'm going to start with the red channel. This is something I learned back in middle school, actually, and it just kind of gives it a little bit more of an Instagram aesthetic. This was before Instagram was around, so there's that. So what I'm doing is adding an S curve, and basically because it's closer to an S rather than that straight line. And what this is doing is, if I stretch that out, on the left side of this graph, you'll notice that this little slider right here, these are darker reds. So anything that was in a like in a shadow or something, and it had red value, I'm pulling it down, which means the reds are losing saturation or losing that impact. And if I push those values on the right side, which is where the whiter reds are, those will have more impact on the image. So I'm going to bring that same concept over to the green channel, and maybe just a little slider of an impact though, and that will give it kind of a cool balanced balanced look. And then with the blues, this is where it kind of gets crazy, but if I kind of bring up the blues on the left and bring down the blues on the right, ultimately we're changing the slope, if you will, if you like that math class. Basically, we're, rather than a 1-to-1, we're kind of just changing it to a slower or a softer slope. So that went pretty blue in the shade, and so what I'm going to do is bring that down just a little bit, so I retain a little bit more of the warmth on that side. So that looks pretty cool. I'm pretty content with that. But let's say I like where I'm going, I like the direction, but maybe this was just a little too much. What I do is bring my opacity down, so I can actually just highlight and change it to 80, or if I click and drag on this guy right here, I can change it that way. Let's say I want to do like 70%, and then I can toggle that. Cool, I like that. It kind of has a little bit more of a green feel to it. The sky has a more sunsetty feel. And if I press and hold Option to click on this eyeball right here, this will turn off all the other layers except this one. So this is the original image. And if I press and hold Option again, I can click on that eyeball, and this shows you all of my edits. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm just going to retitle this Style. And that way when I go to save it and I come back to it or anything like that, I can remember, oh, that's my style layer and this is my retouch layer. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm going to press Command S on my keyboard. That way I can save it. I'm just going to leave it as Photoshop layers included and save. I'm going to maximize the compatibility and click OK. And if I wanted to, let's say, put this on social right away, I'm going to press Command Shift S, and I'll change this to JPEG. That way I can send it to my phone via iMessage or post directly to Facebook or something like that. And we're all set. If I go back to Finder, I can bring up a new window, and we have our JPEG. So here's the original edit that I just finished, and this is the straight out of camera raw file that was from my 5D Mark III. So this is it right here. If I'll go ahead and toggle it, you can kind of see back and forth, and I'm pretty pumped. So that looks pretty cool. I hope you guys maybe learned something out of this and enjoyed listening and or watching. Go ahead and comment below if you have any ideas or feedback for me. I'm pumped to kind of crank out a bunch of these things, and yeah, thanks for listening.